If you grew up in the 1980s, you're part of the last generation that remembers life before the internet, and the first generation forced to survive in it. You're stuck between two worlds, and psychologically, that's made you different from everyone else. You remember when friendships required effort, when boredom was normal, when privacy actually existed. But here's what nobody talks about. That childhood shaped your brain in ways that make you both incredibly resilient and deeply traumatized. Today, we're diving into the psychology of 80s kids. And by the end, you'll understand why you are the way you are. Let's start with something that defines every 80s kid. You raised yourself. Your parents weren't helicopter parents. They were barely aware you existed parents. You left the house at 8 a.m., came back when the streetlights turned on. Nobody asked where you were. Nobody tracked your location. Nobody scheduled your entire day. Pause. And psychologically, this did something profound. It forced you to develop independence at a level kids today will never understand. You learned to solve your own problems, navigate your own conflicts, entertain yourself for hours with nothing but imagination. You fell off your bike? You got back on. Got in a fight. You handled it. Got lost. You figured it out. There was no safety net. No parent swooping in to fix everything. No therapist on speed dial. And here's the dark side of that. You learned that asking for help was weakness. Even now, as an adult, you struggle to reach out. You suffer in silence. You carry burdens alone because somewhere deep in your psyche, that 80s kid is still whispering. Figure it out yourself. Nobody's coming to save you. This made you incredibly self-reliant, but it also made you emotionally isolated. You're great in a crisis, terrible at being vulnerable. Here's where it gets fascinating. Your brain was wired in an analog world, but you're forced to function in a digital one. You remember life before constant stimulation. Before notifications, before everything became instant, you had to wait for things. Wait for your favorite song on the radio to record it on cassette. Wait a week for the next episode of your show. Wait for the photo developer to see if your pictures turned out. And psychologically, this taught you something the next generation doesn't have: patience, delayed gratification, the ability to be bored. But now, you're living in a world designed for instant everything, and it's breaking you. Studies show that people who grew up pre-internet experience higher rates of anxiety and overwhelm in the digital age than digital natives. Why? Because your brain wasn't built for this. You remember deep focus, reading for hours without checking your phone, having one conversation without distraction. Now you're drowning in information. Dopamine hits every 30 seconds. Your attention span shredded. You're nostalgic not just for the 80s, but for your own brain before it was hijacked. And the worst part? You can't go back. You're trapped between remembering how peace felt and being unable to find it again. Friendship without algorithms. Let's talk about something that haunts every 80s kid. You remember when friendships were real. You didn't have 500 friends online. You had 5 friends in real life. And they meant everything. You showed up at their house unannounced. You talked for hours on a landline with the cord stretched across the kitchen. You made plans without texting 47 times to confirm. Trust was built through time, not through likes. But here's the psychological wound. You've watched those deep connections disappear. Now people ghost. Relationships are maintained through occasional comments on posts. Catching up means scrolling someone's feed. And it's left you feeling like you're the only one who still values depth. You send long messages. People reply with emojis. You want real conversation. People want small talk. You remember loyalty. Now you see disposability. And psychologically, this has made many 80s kids incredibly lonely. Not because you don't have people around you, but because nobody connects the way you remember connection feeling. You're mourning a type of friendship that doesn't exist anymore. You're not antisocial. You're just exhausted from trying to build deep relationships in a shallow world. And every birthday that passes, you feel it more. The friends from childhood scattered. The closeness gone. You're surrounded by people, but emotionally starving. The trauma nobody names. Now here's the part nobody talks about. 80s kids experience trauma that was never acknowledged as trauma. You were bullied? Toughen up. You were scared? Stop being dramatic. You were struggling? Kids these days have it so easy. There was no language for mental health. No safe spaces. No validation. You just survived. And here's what that did psychologically. You learned to minimize your own pain. Even now, when something hurts, you downplay it. You compare it to real problems. You tell yourself others have it worse. You were trained to suppress, not process. Raised in homes where emotions weren't discussed. Where crying meant weakness. Where therapy was for crazy people. So you built walls. Locked everything inside. Became functional, but not whole. And decades later, those walls are crumbling. You're realizing that you've been carrying wounds for 30, 40 years that were never allowed to heal. The independence you're so proud of? It's also your loneliness. The resilience everyone admires? It's also your inability to ask for help. You're the bridge generation. You remember analog warmth, but live in digital coldness. You value depth, but exist in a world of surfaces. You were raised to be tough, but are living in a time that's finally talking about tenderness. In that position, it's exhausting. You don't fully belong in either world. Too nostalgic for the past to fully embrace the present. Too adapted to the present to ever truly go back. But here's what I want you to know. Your psychology isn't broken. It's just different. You're not weak for struggling with overstimulation. You're not bitter for missing real connection. You're not damaged for carrying things you were never taught to put down. You're a generation that was forced to be strong before you were ready. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to give yourself permission to finally be soft. To admit that the independence was survival, not choice. To acknowledge that you're tired of being strong. To accept that the little kid from the 80s who figured everything out alone deserves to finally be held. You don't have to keep proving you can handle it. You already did. If this resonated with you, you're not alone. Drop a comment and tell me, what's the one thing about the 80s you wish you could bring back? And remember, your past shaped you, but it doesn't have to define you.